Oh, it's just good. We made tarot up, do what works. This is secure in my collection, but it's just sometimes it's heavy. It's a lot. I'm in my spiral bound era. Very quickly fell apart, fell by the wayside. Hello everybody, it's Sylvie. Welcome or welcome back to Tarot Magpie. I hope you're doing all kinds of good. Today I am chatting through what my September was like and what my tarot practice was like in September, mostly. So I'm going to get straight into it. September was a month. September seems like it was so long, but also like time flew and like everything happened, but nothing happened and nothing changed. But I don't know, September was a weird one. Is it just me? Let me know. But September was a very quiet month for me. Personally, I was not very super busy in my personal life. I had a birthday, which I feel like I've talked about nonstop, so I'm gonna quit it. But that's about the most interesting thing that happened. But in terms of tarot, I did have a very good month. I think I am going to go through the books first because that is a very small section and then we'll get into decks. I had I had an extremely ambitious TBR for September, which I knew going in was unrealistic and I was just going to see what I got through. I was hoping I would read a little bit more than I did, but it's okay, it is what it is. So I have shown all of these off recently. Most of these were actually in my recent haul video that went up, but this is Barry Dainton's Self, which is a philosophy book about the ideas of self. I am still partway through this. I'm reading it fairly slowly because it's really interesting and I'm tabbing it up and then every so often I'm going to my note-taking app of choice, which happens to be Obsidian, and kind of inputting the notes into there. So I'm reading it slowly. I'm taking my time with it. I'm getting a little bit nerdy with it, which I love to do. So I'm really enjoying this. I'm finding it really interesting. I've come across some of these ideas in various other forms. I think the idea of self is one that is explored quite a lot in a lot of different books, movies, etc. And I think there's a big crossover with not tarot itself, but I think it's interesting having this slightly more technical text on ideas of selfhood because I think it's something that comes out in a lot of different people's style of tarot reading. Like it's very subtext. I don't think most people, at least not that I've come across, they're not going into their tarot reading or talking about that tarot practice and talking about that idea of self in such like specific terminology, but it's something that kind of flavors tarot practice. So, and it's me, I bring everything back to tarot. But it's just been really interesting to kind of get a bit more of a grip with these ideas of self and, you know, what is the self? Are we our minds? Are we our bodies? Are we consciousness? Like it's interesting. I've been really enjoying it. And then I've been reading this alongside The Web of Meaning by Jeremy Lent, which is such a perfect Sylvie book, integrating science and traditional wisdom to find our place in the universe. I am also partway through this. You can see I've got tabs up here where I've been taking notes, I've been scribbling in margins, and then I've got tabs back here where I have been highlighting references that I want to go away and look up and maybe add to my ever-growing to-read list. So this is, I spoke about these together in my recent haul video, and I mentioned this, obviously ideas of self. This is very internal. This is, at least so far, it's quite singular. It's about the individual experience of self. And this, The Web of Meaning, is a lot of similar kind of ideas and discussions because everything interconnects, but this is much more expansive and much more external. So I think so far I've read the Who Am I, which is what complements this self book quite a lot, and I'm reading Where Am I, and then we've got What Am I, The Purpose of Life, How Should I Live, Why Am I, Everything is Connected. It's my personal tagline, and it's kind of what is meaning? How do we make meaning? It's connecting various different scientific ideas with different spiritual ideas and ideas of what the world is, what connects us all, what connects people to our environments. It's really interesting, and it is that kind of holistic take that I personally really love. I really love a text that gets into integrating like a scientific way of looking at things, a spiritual way of looking at things, and like bringing it together and seeing where there's complements between the different approaches and where they kind of say the same thing and where they couldn't possibly say the same thing because they're speaking different languages. I think it's so cool. I've been loving this. Highly, highly recommend. If you have ever watched my videos and thought, I like the way you think, and I know that several of you have because I've gotten a few lovely comments along those lines, I'd recommend this book because it is very much my brain in a book. It speaks directly to a lot of the ways that I think about things. It's very cool. So that's the non-fiction that I've been working my way through. As for tarot non-fiction, this I've spoken about loads. This is New Directions in Tarot by Scott Martin, which I have been reading for my Patreon, and I will continue to make my way through this. I've been working through this. I'm just over halfway through, if I am on track, which I don't think I am. But this is so cool. You can see I've got like post-it notes where I've been doing the different exercises. There's some really cool exercises, and then I've just started to get into this section where it looks at the minor cards and the way that everybody is staged in the minor cards, which direction they're facing, whether they're at the front or more toward the back, as if each card were taking place on a stage, as in like a theatre stage play. So it's very cool. I've not seen this perspective much. I know people talk about the tarot card as a stage in a lot of different guidebooks, but this is really getting into it. It has this beginning section which is like essentially breaking down what staging means. I have no theatre background. I'm not that kind of gay. So that was quite useful to me because I just needed that kind of primer in theatre and how staging works. And like I say, we're now getting into the cards. There's been some really cool exercises that have required you to think about the cards and like go into the card and do a little bit of that sort of not visualization, but like coming up with a dialogue or a narrative, which I'm instinctively a little bit like, like that's not my favorite thing to do because it just doesn't come naturally to me. I'm a bit too literal minded, but it was really interesting to do and I got a lot out of it once I got into it. The section you saw with all of the post-it notes was just a really, really good exercise that I enjoyed doing. So this, the idea was each card had a main theme and it kind of gave you some, and then the exercise was to come up with your own. As you see, I struggled with the court cards in this one, and I am looking forward to later in the book when we kind of get into the court cards, because I slightly struggle to view those the same way as I view the minors. In my brain, the court cards are very much their own suit. Like you've got the major arcana and those big overarching themes and archetypes. You've got the minor arcana with kind of more everyday interactions, and the minor arcana more represent like real life moments to me. And then the court cards are kind of just their own thing to me. I don't see them specifically as people. I don't think they always represent a person in my life. Like I say, I'm still working my way through it. There's some really cool spreads in this book as well. It's just a really cool book. I think if you are looking for a new perspective on the tarot, I think I'd recommend this. Like I say, I'm only halfway through. I think I will come away from this once I finish reading it, you know, fingers crossed. I'll come away for this with a extra sort of tool in my toolkit for how to read, especially the minor arcana, but how to read the cards and how to interpret the directionality of the figures. I'm really interested to see how this corresponds to directionality in something like Marseille, where the direction the figures are facing is really important. This obviously is specifically about the Rider-Waite-Smith and Pamela Coleman-Smith's artwork because she had a background in theatre. This is specifically about her artwork. So it's not so much that I'm looking to apply these ideas to something like the Marseille, because it's a different system, but I will just be interested to do a comparison. But that's a bit of a ways down the line once I finish this book. Um, but yeah, I think it's interesting. It's a lot of good food for thought. All right, and then the last physical book that I have here that I did read in September is Parable of the Talents by Octavia E. Butler. I read Parable of the Sower a little while back. That was actually a reread. This was the first time. And what can I say about Parable of the Talents? I'm not a literary kind of person, so I don't have deep and meaningful insight to share. Others have, I'm sure, I'm certain, have said it better than I could, but this was a really powerful read, unsurprisingly. It was really confronting, really quite hard to read, really harrowing at certain points in the book. And then also at certain points in the book, it was scary how much it mirrored what we're going through in the world at present. Parable of the Sower, the first book, is set in 2024, and then this book is set later on, but it's kind of contemporary. This was first published in 1998, so it was about 30 years more kind of in the future when it was written. I think that was a messy way to say that, but you know what I mean. It was like near future when it was written, and we're now coming about to the kind of time where this is set in our very near future. So it wasn't written as a contemporary, it reads as a vision of what life could look like now. I'm sure you understand what I mean. I'm just having a hard time phrasing it. But all that to say, it's kind of dystopian, but it's a dystopia that has become contemporary. And because it so completely mirrors some things that are happening in real life in our current world, it's kind of scary. It's like when everybody says like, oh, XYZ, it's feeling very Orwellian, which but it's like that, but it's harsher and maybe more accurate in some ways. I won't get into my thoughts on 1984, which I think is worth reading, but I think the issue with 1984 is that there's no real declaration as to who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. So I think anyone can read 1984 and insert whoever they want as being the big bad in that book. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to get into it. That's not the case for this. It's much more... what's the word? It's more direct. And as a result of that, it's that much more kind of spooky dystopian when it hits the nail on the head. I thoroughly enjoyed feels like the wrong word because it was not a easy breezy read, but I think it's very much worth reading. I listened to the audiobook for this, although I do obviously have the physical copy. I ended up listening to an audiobook, which I really enjoyed because there was different voice actors for a few of the different characters, but it was fantastic. And also I have caught myself thinking God is change in response to just various things that are happening, because I heard the words in my ears so much while I was listening to this book, so that has kind of become a little bit of a personal mantra. But yeah, thoroughly worth reading. Everybody knows this. Like I say, it was published in 98. Octavia E. Butler is fantastic as an author, and I'm glad I finally got around to reading it. Alrighty, that was all of the books. I'm gonna get to the decks now. Influence of the Angels. Oh, she's shiny. This was my Virgo season deck in my tarot journal, which I will get out for you because it's pretty. There we go. I ran out of room, so it actually says Influence of the Angel, but there's more than one angel in this deck. So that's my Virgo season spread in my tarot journal. I loved working with this deck. So this is one of those decks that I've nearly gotten rid of, and then I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a go because I want to love it. I love this art style, this kind of curated collage fine art, and the guidebook for this is so good. And I knew flicking through the guidebook before I did much reading with this that I wanted to love it, that the guidebook was the kind of guidebook that I would really enjoy. I just never got around to it. And so I'm so glad I did with Virgo season. This is one of those decks where I was a couple days in and I was like, yes, this is excellent, which is something I really love doing these monthly kind of picks for, because I can usually tell within a few days whether I like the guidebook and whether I like the deck, which is why they're really valuable. Because like the Herbcrafters Tarot, I loved working with the guidebook for this because it really did sell me on the deck. I remember Navigators, I was like, the guidebook is buck wild. Tower of Tales, very quickly realized I do not like this deck. And Heart and Hands, I like the deck, I don't love the guidebook so much. It's kind of meh for me. And yeah, Influence of the Angels, love the deck, love the guidebook, which I will show you. So here we've got our Six of Cups. So we've got sixes are about returning to a state of harmony and balance. And then the symbols that have been included in this card. So we've got primrose flowers and the children. The primrose is down here and the children, and what they represent, what the symbolism of those symbols is. Direct meaning, shadow meaning, and then an angelic message, which is kind of a like advice, like if you were to take advice from the card, which I know a lot of people do that as their daily pull, they'll pull a card for advice for the day. That's kind of what this could be. I really, really loved this. I thought the guidebook was just fab. I really like the deck. I'm so glad that I didn't, get rid of this before I gave it the chance. I do kind of hate the cardstock and the backs. It's only because I know this exists in a linen finish, which is my preferred kind of cardstock. So part of me is like, oh, I would love to have it in the linen because that would be nicer, but it's fine. The gloss is only really a pain when I am taking photos or filming, which is not all that I do with my cards. So anyway, loved Influence of the Angels, successfully did my Virgo season, and this is secure in my collection for the foreseeable. All right, moving swiftly on. I'm not going to take these out of their boxes because I've shown them off recently in my haul video, but the Gustave Doré Tarot and the Circe Tarot, I didn't use these for readings at any point during the month, and to be fair, they were not my kind of primary decks for the month, I don't think, but I did for different weeks, and this is something I've not done this week, but I've kind of been doing recently, is on a Monday morning I pull 7 cards, one for each day of the week, and then I have a little spot just over there where you can't see. I've got a little spot where I stack them and I just rotate them so I have a different card to look at every day, and it's mainly just to kind of see more of my decks. I don't do any, or I haven't yet anyway, done any journaling with them. I don't take them as advice or messages particularly. It's just kind of to see what comes up. And so I did do that with each of these, but I didn't do any real readings with either of them. The Moonology was also in my September stack, and I don't know if I pulled this out, to be honest. Not for myself. I think I have been keeping this and it now lives next to my bed, and I might pull a card, but I mostly pull cards for my partner with this. So it's had use, but not so much in my personal practice. The Medieval Feathers Tarot and the Urban Crow Oracle, I will get these out because they look so good next to each other. Right, I don't think these got a ton of playtime at any point, which I am slightly disappointed in myself about. Do you know what would be great would be if we could see what's going on. I love them together. They're so good. And I think I started to do a using them as a pair for a daily reading, and then that very quickly fell apart, fell by the wayside. I'm just not into that right now. That's not where my practice has been taking me. So they didn't get a whole lot of playtime. And I think that's partly because I haven't been doing everyday readings quite so much. I've been doing more sporadic, bigger readings, or I've been really loving the patchwork, multi-deck, mind map kind of reading, which I will get into. So love these as a pair. Did love them when I worked with them. I just didn't work with them very much. So that's a little bit of a shame, but there's plenty of time left. and that's fully just upside down. There we go. Although they do have reverse keywords, so they do work quite well upside down. But like distraction, oh, distraction with the lovers, romance, and then risks with the Wheel of Fortune reversed. How good is that? Like the risks of romance, the risks of distraction. Oh, that's fun. Nature with material and disconnect. Are we disconnected from the material world, from nature, or are we too focused on material gain and constructed gain, if that makes sense? To spend time in nature, is that the disconnect? Okay, so this is a good pair. Perception, preparation, and loyalty. It's a good pairing. I really enjoy it. I would recommend it. I didn't get to it very much this month, but life goes on. All right, almost finally, the Tarot Volatile, My Beloved. I used this in one or two larger readings for myself, and it was just a reminder of how much I love this deck. It was just good to kind of spend some quality time with it, you know? And then I also ended up using this deck for some of the exercises in the New Directions in Tarot book, which I would not necessarily recommend. I know I talked about it being very specifically based on Pixie's artwork, which it is, but I think for some of the exercises you could do them with any deck, any card. It's about like imagining the sounds or the scene, what might be going on between the figures, and coming up with some dialogue. And I think you can do that with any deck. And this is, well, not this card. A lot of it's quite Rider-Waite-Smith, so it does work. But so I used that for the New Directions and Tarot, and also just for a couple of bigger readings because it's a fabulous deck. It talks to me clearly, and also it's a bit grungy, it's a bit dark. It's a good autumn deck, you know? Okay, finally, I'm going to talk about the rest of the decks. So these three, the Tarot of a Moon Garden, the Herbal Astrology, Oracle, and the Midnight Magic Tarot were on my September list. And then I also brought in the Prairie Majesty, because I'm obsessed, and the Spirit Animal Tarot, which I bought myself early September. And I ended up using these in big patchwork readings quite frequently, as well as I did pull in the Shadowscapes Tarot a couple times, which is my deck for Libra season, so that did show up in September. But I'm gonna get these out and kind of show you what a patchwork spread's been looking like, because I've been really loving these. All right, I just did a very quick shuffle and pulled out some cards from each of these decks. I have got two Six of Cups. I swear this was random. I actually did do a little shuffle because it feels wrong to just pull cards off the top of the deck. I don't know why. So we've got the Prairie Majesty Oracle, the Herbal Astrology Oracle, the Midnight Magic Tarot, the Spirit Animal Spirit. It's also called the Animal Wisdom, and the Tarot of a Moon Garden, which have all just been working lovely together, I think. I like that there's some keywords in these two oracles. There's like a question on the Prairie Majesty, so you can totally use this as like a focal point for the reading, and then pull these out and like, what do I want to carve out space for in my life? We've got a breakthrough, and then we've got the kind of burden, the heaviness of the Ten of Wands, and then two Six of Cups, because Six of Shells is the water suit. And so that's loud, right? What do I want to carve out space for in my life? Is the Six of Cups, is this kind of nostalgia, harmony kind of energy, but also with a burden and with a breakthrough. Like they feel kind of opposite, right? And then we've got the Six of Shells and the Six of Cups, kind of opposing forces of the burden and the breakthrough. Although maybe you need to break through the burden, or you need the heaviness of the burden to give you the, not the inspiration, but sometimes I think you need the weight of what is on you, and the weight of what you wanted. By the way, the Ten of Wands is something you wanted. This is what you're passionate about, what you care about, but it's just sometimes it's heavy, it's a lot. Which nostalgia, sometimes it's heavy, it's a lot. And I think you can dig into your past if you take the Six of Cups as that nostalgia as like the nostalgia take of the Six of Cups? Like, are you digging into your past and your personal history? Are you digging deep into your emotions? Are you having an emotional breakthrough with the Six of Cups? Are you carrying the weight of all of your emotions? Like, oh, I'm totally just riffing and probably spouting nonsense, but I have been loving this style of reading. It's been a lot of what I've been doing this last month, and these decks in particular. Sometimes I've pulled in, like I said, the Shadowscapes or the Moonology Oracle that I showed earlier. I pulled that in as well. Now that I've got the Song of the Grandmothers, which is the other deck by Cara Simons, I totally want to pull that in too. But I've been really into this like multi-deck, throw some cards down, see what they have to say to each other, and like I like being able to like move them around. And then when I'm seeing and making connections, it's just been a really exciting way of working with the tarot for me. Like I say, I've fallen out of the habit of doing daily readings. I tried for about 3 days, it didn't stick. I haven't done any kind of everyday readings, I think, at all this last month. It's been more sporadic, but a little bit deeper. These are quite time intensive. That is the only thing, is I like to really get into these because I think you can just pull at so many different threads. You could spend hours. I have spent well over an hour easily doing one of these readings, and I've had to just stop because you've got to stop somewhere. That's the thing with tarot, you can always keep digging. You can always go deeper. But anyway, that I think just about does it for this video. That was my September practice. You saw my Virgo season in my journal. I think I pulled this out in a video recently, but this is my tarot journal of the moment. I'm in my spiral bound era. Okay, so this is one of my patchwork spreads where I did the mind map, and this was with the Midnight Magic, the Moonology, the Moon Garden, and the Animal Wisdom. Oh, it's just good. It's good. I've got a video coming on how I do these mind map spreads and sort of a bit of a system for how to do them. I mean, it's all just vibes. You do you. We made tarot up. Do what works. I know there's been some interest, and I think it's really fun, so I want to talk about it. But anyhow, this has been my journal. I've totally transformed into the big old book, which I thought was really intimidating, but this one has pink lines, and that might have a lot to do with it. But it's quite freeing to just chuck everything in here. I've got all kinds of readings. I did one of the Animal Wisdom readings that come with the book. I've got New Directions in Tarot, the book that I'm reading. I've got notes. I've got some real powerful readings in here, and I won't get into my personal notes here, but that's been my practice. It's totally had a bit of a shift. I'm really loving it. I'm really enjoying my practice, and that is that. So that's my little September wrap up. I hope you've enjoyed watching. I hope you enjoyed these videos, because I do my decks on my desk for X month, and then I've also been doing these wrap ups. I think I say I've been doing. This is the second one, but I like having a little bit of a look back and kind of assessing how my practice has flowed over the month. And I hope you enjoy too, but that is it from me. That is everything for this video. I will let you go. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, I really hope you have enjoyed. Let me know what you think. Give me a like if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, check out my Etsy, my Patreon, all that good stuff is always linked in the description, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!